When it comes to bats, people are frightened by bats for a variety of different reasons, whether from childhood movies or just the uncertainty of what a bat may do. But bats are very beneficial to the ecosystem and your backyard. Now, Holly, how many, there's all different kinds of species of bats. How many different varieties of bats are there in the United States and the world for that matter?
Well, there are more than 1,300 species worldwide and 47 in the United States.
Okay.
And bats are not normally aggressive, and they will avoid contact with humans.
Well, I hold that thought, because just like any animal, if you show aggression towards it, some of them will show aggression towards you.
Right.
But it's one in leave it alone, they leave you alone kind of mindset.
Like, okay. Bats are kind of sneaky.
Okay.
So
they're nocturnal?
They're nocturnal.
Okay.
But the likeliness of you having a run-in with a bat is very low. You're probably going to have a run-in with a pigeon more than a bat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do we want? What do we need to know? People think, bats are horrible, they're bad, they're spooky, they're scary. What are some of the things that we need to be aware of that maybe some of our listeners are unaware of, the positive things about bats?
Bats are our friends. So we want bats around. Bats do a lot of cool stuff. One bat, here's a fun fact. Okay. One little brown bat. So typically in the United States, they're brown bats, they're fruit bats, they're little, tiny little bat friends.
Size of a small bird, maybe? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That type of, okay.
Smaller. They're very small.
So they would fit in the palm of your hand if it was sitting there? Okay.
So they're helpful. So one bat can eat 60 moths or even 1,000 mosquitoes in one night.
Busy little bat.
Busy little bat, right. So they like to eat the moths and the mosquitoes. They eat the bad bugs. So that's good.
And we've got the mosquitoes that can carry these diseases. And if the bats don't bother you and they're getting rid of the mosquitoes, win-win.
Right, exactly. In the United States, but a lot of times, like in the rainforest, they help spread seeds, so they help regenerate trees. Because they eat those tropical fruits, they spread the seeds through that way and through their waste and whatnot, and then they help regenerate trees. So that's good. And
they pollinate a lot of plants.
Yeah.
Whether we were aware of it or not, yeah.
They move from plant to plant. They also like to eat the nectar, so then they help pollinate those plants as well.
Now, people often refer to bats as they'll drink my blood if they bite me, that type of thing. I think the Count never did that on Sesame Street, did he? He just counted things, but he had bats.
He had bats.
He had bats, but he never. The bats never hurt anybody.
No,
they were
that's
on
just
sticks
a myth.
too, so that would have been a little difficult.
It's just a myth. So
it's a myth. So okay.
It is a myth. I mean, I'm sure there are bats in other countries that maybe eat
shown aggression towards could bite
but
you.
But in the United States, it's fruit bats. It's kind of like they leave you alone, you leave them alone. It's good.
So you don't have to worry about them. You sitting on the patio and they coming on your neck and biting you. That
would be really odd.
That's a very uncharacteristic thing about a bat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So people do attract bats to their property, and they do it in a variety of different ways. One is called a bat house. And there can be large bat houses and small bat houses. Essentially, Holly, what is a descriptional bat house, if we can describe that?
So a bat house looks like it's a very thin wood box. It's often painted black. It's probably about 2 inches thick by 11 inches tall by 11 inches wide.
Typical one. I mean, they can get much larger, but that's a standard smaller.
Yeah, but they're very thin. So, because the bats, they're trying to mimic, because bats will nest kind of in between the bark of a tree, like literally in between the bark of a tree. So they want a small area to nest. And then they have their babies. Bats are mammals. They have their babies, and then they go from there. So they want to have a small space for them to nest. And so the important part about having the bat house is where you're putting the bat house. That's important because you want to put it in a high place, but not a tree. Because if you put it in a tree, bats are afraid of predators, and a predator could get it faster in a tree. So you want to put it on a pole or on the side of your house in a sunny spot, because the sun during the day is going to heat up that bat house, because they're typically painted black. It's going to heat up that bat house, and that way the bats have a warm place to be.
And there can be dozens of bats in one bat house.
Yes.
And you can construct your own bat house.
You can construct your own.
It's called YouTube. You can find pretty much anything you want on YouTube. So,
but you can also, when you construct your bat house, you can also register it with, I think it's the Nature Conservancy. You'd have to Google that, and then you are a wildlife refuge in a sense. So you can register as a national.
Are you certified then, or it just registered showing that your property?
I don't
or
know
that
if it's certification, but you can register that.
But it's licensed. It's notified by the state in which you're in.
I think it's national.
National, that shows that you are a safe haven for.
You're a safe haven for the bats.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Like if you're into certifications or whatever.
And it's probably free or very.
Yeah.
Oh, it is free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So there's that. They encourage you to build your own bat house as opposed to buying it, but whatever.
There are companies out there that do manufacture
sure.
very nice bat houses, and you can and people will put them on a pole, like you said, out over a garden area, or there's recommendations side of the house. Now, if we was to go to the purchasing or building of a bat house, and we're in a residential or a city area, rural areas, country area, a little different. Do we have to get permission from the city? Do we have to get a license? What do we have to do?
It should be legal in most cities. You can check with your city. There might be something where they want you to be X amount of whatever from adjacent property.
I know beekeeping, you have to be so many feet away from adjacent property lines.
I guess it's like this. If you're going to add anything onto your home, you're going to check with the city anyway, more than likely. If you live in an area that has like a housing authority or an HOA or whatever those are, definitely check with them as well.
Yeah. If you're in the country, you can probably get away with a lot of stuff. Yeah. And
also the bat house, you want to make sure that you have water somewhere, because a lot of times when the mothers give birth to the bats, they don't want to have to fly far to get to the water,
right.
So that way it's an inhabitable place for them.
What type of water system do we want? Do we want we encourage birds? We encourage to have bird feeders in the garden, like
matter.
A bird bath.
It could be a bird bath.
So we can benefit.
You're not going to see the bats.
No, you're not going to see them. But if you're benefiting two species here, bird bath, water for the birds, feeding the birds, getting them travel through the garden, and then also using that bird bath as a beneficial watering system for
you
the
could have like a
bats.
whole ecosystem in your backyard. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem in your backyard, but you could have like birds, bats, bees, beets,
butterflies.
Yeah. Bears. Maybe not bears.
But people are not aware that bats are
your friends.
Bats are very beneficial.
Yeah, so let's review here. Bats, they're not going to attack you. They mind their own business. They're like the good neighbor, They pollinate. They help pollinate. They help eat the bad bugs. They eat mosquitoes. Like, hello, mosquitoes are not our friends. We don't like mosquitoes, so they eat the mosquitoes. And if you want to have some fun with the bats, you want to help the bats, build a bat house. Check out how you could get registered as a wildness friend. You don't have to do that, but yeah.
And it's not. There's no. If you build it, they will come. Is that kind of the mindset of this? I mean, they seek out. It's not like you don't want to find a bat shop or I don't.
It's like when you put a birdhouse in your garden, and in 6 hours there's a bird.
The realtor checks in, and then
same thing with the bats. Yeah.
So that if you've never looked into, if you have an insect problem, this definitely is something that we would recommend you looking into bats. And you can find out, I'm sure there's multiple species of bats. Now, and maybe you don't know this, is it typically the bat house houses one specific species, or can multiple species of bats live in one house together?
I didn't look into that.
Okay. So keep that in mind.
I think it would just be one, whatever is kind of in your area. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.